All right, hello everybody, how's it going? Real Diversity, hope you know what's going on by the title of the video. But we're gonna be ranking the best decks right now for rank. And first I like to do always just open a pack at the start of a video if I have one, just for fun. Oh, nice, Mega Gyarados. I think it's my second one actually. Oh no, this is our first time getting this card. Nice, Mega Gyarados. Unfortunately, Mega Gyarados is not that great right now. Yeah. So, and I was opening these Mega Gyarados packs for a second Absol, but I think I just unlocked one with the free. They gave me a free one for having a premium pass. So, but anyways, yep, nice. Always good to when I do actually get something good when I start a video with a pack opener, because normally I just open a pack and just get nothing. But all right, so okay. Well, first of all, let me show you guys my rank. This is my current rank, currently right now. And let me show you guys the highest rank I've been. Hold on. Okay, this is a screenshot of the highest rank I've ever been. I was this one I think I first got, like I literally had just got the master rank, because I think you gotta hit is it 1,000 points to get the master? So I had just hit master ball, and then so I was just immediately at it in top 1,000. And then let me show you guys something interesting. So this is one of my higher win streaks, 9. Also here's another win streak. This might be the next game over, which was 10, which I think just went over from the last one I just sent you. And did I stop here? Let me see. Nope. Highest win streak was 11. And this was a few days ago, and then lost a few games, went back on a 5-game win streak. And then let me show you this interesting. So I stopped playing here for the day. Let me show you guys. I stopped playing for like a day. Let me show you guys what my rank was the next day. So same, I had just stopped playing for the day. Same points and everything. I went down 1,000. So staying in the top 10,000, I think is relatively easy if you just get consistent wins, and like not like if you're like if I kept playing, I would probably just get to like the top 100, probably just from if I played all day every day. But I don't have time for that, so I don't play all day every day. But I think at most I can stay in the top 10,000 easily. But one reason I just was showing you all this is just to show you guys I do have expertise. So let me get to the actual point of this video. So I don't know the best way to say this. I want to rank these, but really mainly so just talk about them. But I'll try to rank them, or really just either this is just a best decks to play in ranked, or just a ranking of the best decks, one of the two. Not sure which wording makes more sense to you guys, but I just want to talk about the top decks right now, and which one I think you should be playing, and which ones I think just stack up better into each other. So let me start first with Mega Blaziken. So this deck actually is my own Mega Blaziken. I made this way before rank came out, and then everyone started playing Heatmore Blaziken. This, in my opinion, is the superior way to play it. Do not look at Zangoose. That is my own array. If you see Zangoose, that is definitely my deck. This is the deck I made before it blew up and everyone's running it. If you go watch any of my videos, I always talk about this deck and how I made it before it became mainstream. Because I did genuinely make it like before it was people caught on to it. But I initially started as an Infernape deck actually, because here it is. Here I initially made this Infernape deck, and I was like, okay, it was doing really well. Obviously, Infernape hits for the same amount as Blaziken minus that extra burn you can probably get, so you potentially can hit for 160 with Blaziken if they stay burned 2 turns. So that's something to think about. But yeah, I started with this Infernape deck. So anyways, let me talk about Mega Blaziken. So this is not, I think, the main way people are playing it. This is just my deck. So if you are looking for the exact Mega Blaziken break like deck, like you can go find that on like Pokézone or something like that. So you don't have to worry about like copying this deck. But I do. This one actually did play really well. I think Zangoose is very useful in the matchups into Oricorio. But the biggest thing with Zangoose that sucks is he does not get access to Flame Patch, so you can't like set him up to attack early. You just have to hope you get him. But he does give you just a good, just a good, somewhat of a good wall. especially into things like Chingling. So he's really good at countering Chingling. Chinglings don't really want to attack into him because he pretty much has like an auto Rocky helmet. So he's really good into things like Chingling and that type of thing. So he I don't know why people aren't running him, but this is my deck. So I bet again I haven't played this in a while, so I don't know how well he plays into the newer like decks like how he plays into decks like the new Suicune, because Suicune was definitely not around when I was playing this deck. But but I know like he'll play really well into any like thing else. Pretty good. So let me talk a little bit about what I think Mega Blaziken's doing well. Mega Blaziken is he's pretty much, if you set up Blaziken and you come into your opponent's Mega, whether it's Mega Ulterior or you come into Mega Suicune, things like that, yeah, you're good. Like this deck is really good in those aspects, and I would probably take out red out this deck. No, actually, I would leave red because the only reason I don't know, it's hard to say. I'll say the only reason I would leave, I think I would want to take out red for Guzma, and I'll talk about Guzma later. But I would probably take out if you're gonna use my deck anyway. But Mega Blaziken is probably the worst out of the big four decks, if you will. And really honorable mention, I will mention Magnezone or Choreo. I don't see it too often, and I'm playing a bunch of matches, and I'm always running into these four decks, but never am I running into. I have run into it a few times, but I always sweep it. Mega Ulterior is plays so well into Oricorio Magneton, so it is not a great deck to run into if to be running unless you're getting a lot of Suicune matchups. So but and the reason because of that Suicune matchup is because there is no counter to Oricorio except for the non-EX Greninja. So if you run into that deck, you were screwed because you can't do nothing but just wait until until you get your non-EX Greninja, and as soon as he comes in, he gets one-shotted by Magnezone, and if unless you're running two of those, like you just lose that match. So honestly, not a bad thing to run in a high rank, because if you do just get a bunch of Suicunes, you just get auto wins, I think, unless they just get really lucky and get an early Greninja and sweep you from there before you can get Magnezone set up. That's how they beat you. Um, but Mega Blaziken is interesting because once it's a high roll deck, but once this card, I think everyone's running Combustion now, so I think people are taking Zangoose out for Combustion, or at least that's what, if you did take out Zangoose, you would add Combustion because of the amount of Chinglings running around. You do not want to. This is one of those decks like you just have to get into Blaziken early, or you just do nothing, because one of the biggest things I, as an opponent, I can do is just set up my active Pokemon, and they can't do nothing with Hemor in the active spot. So I just set up something like Chingling or just whatever, and they can't do anything for like until I either switch out or I or they get into Combustion or something early. But a very this deck struggles heavily early game into Chingling, and if you just have it's a high roll deck because it's stage 2, so if you just don't get into Mega Blaziken, you just lose pretty much every match. But if you get into Mega Blaziken and you get into Mega Blaziken early, and say you go second, you're doing really well. If you go second, you get into Mega Blaziken, your second turn, and you're attacking already. You could pretty much sweep from there. It's just about having get to Mega Blaziken early, and that's about it. Because I would lose to this deck if they get set up before I get set up. I lose to Mega Blaziken. If they come in to my Mega Ulterior, which is normally the deck I'm playing, come into Mega Ulterior with Blaziken, I lose because he's going to pretty much two-shot me every time. I can't heal up out of it. He's going to two-shot me no matter what. No amount of healing's going to stop that. And funny enough, too, if 130, 160, but normally you're running Rocket Helmet. If they're running Lily, they could, in theory, survive 3 max attacks from Mega Ulterior. So Very frustrating deck for a Mega Altaria. It also just, again, even into Suicune and stuff, still a super strong deck. Greninja does two-shot this thing because it is weak to water. So Greninja, like, the Suicune decks plays really well into this. And obviously, I'm assuming that, their Suicune, I mean, yeah, if I said that right, Mega Greninja is going to play really well. I'm not Mega Greninja, but Greninja EX is going to play very well into this. Is it Mega? Wait, I'll clarify that later. Is that Greninja EX Mega or not? I can't remember. No, it's not Mega. I think it's just a normal Greninja. But it has the, I don't know. I'll see when we look at Suicune later. We'll see. Um, but Mega Blaziken, like, again, if he goes into Greninja, you're good. Usually Mega Blaziken decks don't have a lot of bench, so you never really run into that issue of, you're not gonna run too much into that issue of not of Suicune being a threat. It's really always gonna be Greninja EX. And if Greninja EX just doesn't get set up, then this deck does really, really well. But Greninja EX would two-shot this deck. I think Lily may be viable here, honestly, because it keeps you from being two-shotted by Greninja. And I think it just keeps you from being two-shotted by a lot of things. So I don't know. I think Lily would be valuable here. I think a lot of people aren't running because Lily's such a dead card most of the time. In this deck, like, because you see Lily early, it's just a dead card. So you just really hope that, you just get Lily at the right time, and you have to pretty much, like, she's only useful in games you do get set up and all that. So, anyways, I just think a lot of people just avoid playing Lily lately. My nose is stuffed, so my voice sounds weird or my throat sounds weird. It's because I've been sick for the last few days, so my sinuses have been really bad. So, anyways, but this deck is fine. It's winnable. It's a high roll deck. You're gonna go on losing streaks, I think, but you can also go on win streaks. But I think this deck is like a non-skill deck. Like, if you just want to play and just, hope you get, lucky, this is a fine deck. The issue is I beat this deck so often just with Chingling. Chingling just shuts this deck down. So that's my only issue, is I think you really need to have a way of dealing with Chingling. And I really think Heatmore is really good. He is really good, but I think it may be worth, honestly, just switching to the one that hits for 3 energy or 30. I think that's more valuable, honestly, to just shut down Chinglings. If I was to play this deck in the current meta, I'm afraid if I play anything else, I'm gonna lose rank for sure. Since I'm so high up, I'm like, I don't know. If I switch decks now, I'm definitely gonna drop or lose a bunch of games. Cause I'll show you guys my win percentage in a second. But actually, let me do it. I'm gonna forget. Right after I finish this deck, I'm gonna show you because I'm gonna forget. Okay, so again, Heatmore 30. He does the setting up. He sets up the knockouts for, like, things like Mega Absol. So you can go ahead and hit Mega Absol twice or once, and he's set up to be knocked out. So that's an easy knockout there. You can set up things like you're not really worried about Hydreigon, because of the damage it's doing to himself. So you're not worried about that. And also, if Hydreigon does, like, heal up, once you attack it, it cannot build energy up again. So it's kind of just stuck there. And Mega Absol just takes, like, forever to kill this thing. So you do really well into Hydreigon for sure if you get set up. That's really it. So I think this deck plays best into Hydreigon. Does well into everything else. Sucks into Mega Altaria. But if it does get set up and it comes into Mega Altaria, you're doing good. If they just don't ever have Chingling and you can get into your Mega Blaziken, then you just beat Mega Altaria. That's simple. But again, Mega Altaria has so many tools, which we'll talk about. But again, this is a high rolly deck, but it will beat just about everything if you get set up at the right time, which is pretty much your second term. So yeah, other than that, yeah, really, really strong deck. I don't know how this would play too well into Suicune. I keep thinking about it. You just have to come into Greninja, and obviously you either need Guzma or Red Card to handle those Suicunes that are giant caped up. That's about it. If you can get around those giant capes, you're good for, I think, Suicune decks, because you just one shot Suicune. They come in with Greninja. And again, if you're running Lily, yeah, I think I would. I think that's how I would run this deck. Is definitely have a just one Lily, and a Guzma, maybe over red, just in case. Just because there is also a lot of rough. There is a lot of Rocky helmet. So if you can Guzma over red, I think it's smarter because that way. Um, but again, red can also a lot of times just end the game in times where it's like not a giant helmet thing with the damage. It's something else. So I don't know. It's interesting because like into yeah, nothing surviving 2 hits from this thing, no matter what. So 160 is I don't know. It's I don't know. I would have to play this deck, but I can't tell if Red or Guzma. Either way, they both handle that Suicune situation. But I think Guzma's good into that Mega Ulterior situation where they're running a Rocky helmet. Okay, but Mega Blaziken, strong deck. You just have to set up Blaziken. If he doesn't get set up, you're just gonna lose very easily. So bad. You can have this. You can just brick with this deck, and that's really the worst thing about it. It's just you can brick real hard. But other than that, yeah, the other decks I don't think have this problem that much. But I'll talk next about. Well, I guess the other deck that does potentially brick pretty hard is Hydreigon. I run this deck all the time. It's just two ways. This is gonna go is either your opponent has Chingling and shuts you down, so you have to go into your Mega Absolute early, and going into Mega Absolute early is no fun. I honestly would probably run this deck with maybe like a Repel, so that you can move Chingling and hopefully force your opponent to either spend energy to retreat or just make them just stop chinglinging you, or also just set a Mega Absol with leap or the non-Mega Absol with leap over and just knock out their bench chingling now. Because chingling is just really much holds this deck up for like 3 turns. But if this deck if you go first and you get into Hydreigon your second turn, um yeah, this thing just is I think this is automatic win there. Um, Especially into like a Suicune deck, because then you just hit Suicune for you would probably need to run a red or Giovanni. I think a lot of decks run Giovanni, but that gets you over that Suicune or early knockout on Suicune there. Also, yeah, you would definitely run a Giovanni with this deck to just yeah. I'm tripping. Yeah, Giovanni for sure needs to be in here. This deck was I think I copied this deck a while ago, but and as I play decks, I will copy whatever everyone is mainly using. But as time goes on, I will make adjustments to the deck based on what I'm running into. And I would definitely take out red card. Red card is not a good card anymore, and because of Chingling, so this card will almost get zero value most of the time in early game, especially if your opponent just goes first with Chingling. They can't get red carded. Um, and that's about it. But this deck is really, really good if it gets it up early, puts a lot of damage into something. Mega Absol just comes in to just pretty much shut them down for the rest of the game. But yeah, I would definitely run a Giovanni here just for the early Chingling knockouts. And also, that Giovanni damage can get you a knockout on a Suicune without a giant cape. So yeah, very much would advise the Giovanni. If I had to rank this deck, I would put this A, and if I had to rank Blaziken, I would put that B. Just because it's less consistent. Because here, like even you're running with the same issue, which was the rare candy, but you have Mega Absol also as your backup here. Also something to note too, Mega Absol is something you don't want to see early game. So here's an issue you could have if you go second and they get a Chingling. Even if you retreat, an early Chingling on their first turn will pretty much put this card in a it's going to be in a spot to be a win condition the rest of the game. Because I'm sure you're not going to waste a heal on Mega Absol just to for 10 damage or something. But you just know if he has damage on him, obviously like all megas, he becomes a win condition for your opponent. So something scary there is if he's the lead, that's not something you want to see. But what's good about this is even if you go second, you can set up pretty nicely there. I'm sorry, even if you go second and you lead with Mega Absol, you can set up pretty nicely there. All you need to do is just have just throw one energy on Mega Absol. So he either has the option to attack next turn or just retreat into your Hydreigon your second turn, and you're good to go. So either way, not a bad deck at all. Not a deck I like too much again because there's a Chinglings right now. But again, it does really well. Again, and you can run a Rocky Helmet with it. But one thing to note, yeah, Rocky Helmet's pretty good into Chingling, even if they're running the Indeedee. So yep, not a bad deck. Honestly, yeah, I say A out of S is the highest tier. So these next two decks are gonna I'm just gonna spoil it straight up S tier. But let me before I just said I was gonna show you guys my win percentage. Hold on. Before I forget. I know somebody's watching this like he said he was gonna show us his win. So 65% right now is my win. I've won 64 games, lost 36. And like I would say half of those losses are just from bricks. Just I started the game and I had just like they got into a good hand early and we couldn't do nothing. The other 15% of that is me taking risky plays with sleep, and my opponent woke up when I needed them to waste one turn. Sometimes you have to take a sleep play. That's the only way you're gonna win. And so yeah, that is the other like 50% of those losses. And sometimes I just straight up get outplayed by other Mega Ulterior decks. But I've been playing so long. Usually, if I run into a if I run into a mirror deck, I usually always win those matches if we both get set up equally. So all right, Suicune. Sorry, the decks aren't like formatted that well. Okay, was this? This is just Greninja EX. Okay, I just want to say the new Mega Greninja is like spinning upside down, I think. Okay. This deck's it is S. I would say this is one of the only decks I think out of all the ones that like going first is so bad if you don't start with Suicune. If you do not start with Suicune and you go first, it feels so bad because you have to either waste a turn to retreat with Froakie, which a lot of the players here are smart enough to not immediately, to retreat. But if you're not getting the draw from Suicune being in an active spot, but if you do leave Froakie and hopefully your opponent has maybe a slower start than you, then you can just get into your Greninja EX and then start swinging from there. If not, you have to waste another turn to retreat, and that's like 3 turns before you can get an attack off. The one good thing about this deck, it is a lot of healing with Irida, so a lot of those like early little damages are negatable. Like a lot of early Chingling pings, something like a Jirachi ping, or a Heatmorch, anything like those little bitty pings you can just wipe those off pretty easy. It's pretty tanky. Again, the numbers are weird here because with the Giant Cape, Suicune becomes pretty much unkillable by Hydreigon, by Mega Blaziken, by Mega Ulterior. So it is very unkillable. And then the Greninja EX is at 170. So this HP is pretty close to a lot of the Mega. So he himself he is gonna almost always be 2 to kill. And that is tough because if he comes in second, he is always going to get 100 damage off. So if you have to swing on this thing twice, he's going to get 200 damage off into you if he attacks first. Almost nothing surviving 200 damage. That like I just listed that's in the current like mega the current only thing like Mega Ampharos isn't worried about this deck at all. Right? Because it would take Greninja like 30 turns to kill it. And then it's doing massive damage to their bench. So this deck would play really nicely. Mega Ampharos, I'm sorry, I think I said that. So Mega Ampharos doesn't care about this deck at all. But no one's playing Mega Ampharos in against the meta. So because you like even if like you just have to get the perfect start to play Mega Ampharos, and if you don't get the perfect start, you're losing every time. Every time. So but this deck is just so well rounded. Only thing is just the start. Like if this thing, if my opponent goes second and they get Suicune active, it is nearly impossible to beat this deck. Honestly, unless I just get the best start of my life. That is literally it. So this deck is very, very tough to beat. Greninja can just you're like the issue with the old Greninja, and I immediately figured this deck would be good, but people weren't. This deck didn't make any way until like maybe 3 months after the set released, or 3 weeks. I mean, like almost a month after the set came out, this deck finally was like a thing. But I immediately was like, okay, why not? Because the biggest issue with Suicune was that like to retreat was two, so you it takes so much to retreat. With this deck, there is like no downside. Usually, if you get Greninja set up anyway, there's no downside to retreating. Like you're not worried about retreat. You can have multiple Suicune set up. Greninja EX, it is really tough to do it. It's the longer the match goes, and this deck is going to get set up in 4 turns completely. If things are good early for them, so late game, very scary deck to go against. Early, you have to hope they just don't get their pieces early. And this deck can struggle if it goes first. Pretty much if it goes first, even if they leave Suicune, it can still struggle. That's it. That's literally it. Just the opening of this deck is the only thing that holds it back. So, which is pretty much a lot of decks, except I would say Mega Ulterior. It almost doesn't matter how I start that deck. I can almost always win. So this is my deck. I have the most experience with this deck. I can talk very highly about the other ones because I play them all day, every day. So that's why and actually, funny enough, I built that. I'm a disclaimer. I don't know if this is even the right build for this week. This is literally I just built this off of just memory for this video. Haven't even ran this deck. I just built this off of just what I've seen into um into all the decks I keep running to with the Suicune. So that's just strictly off memory. But I did copy it from like initially this older Suicune Greninja deck back in before the B2. But yeah, anyway, Suicune's still very strong. But weakness. If you're smart, you play this deck more than enough to know this. The biggest threat of this deck is not Suicune at all. Suicune is a good draw engine, but if you can stop Greninja from coming out early, that is your win condition in this deck. If you can knock out Froakie, if they can't just never set up Froakie, this deck is not going to do well because one Suicune just does like nothing. I can beat Suicune so easy by just not playing any bench, and it's only doing 20 damage, 40 damage. So Suicune by himself is not a good card, but when he gets his draw up, but he also is their potentially highest attacker. If everyone's set up, he's doing the most damage out of him and Greninja. So it can be a threat if you're not managing your bench. But also, but Greninja EX is the real threat, and he keeps the deck mobile. That's the real issue, is that they can sub out for free. So you really want to avoid excuse me. You really want to avoid them setting this thing up. That's my threat. If I see that thing, I'm trying to kill it as soon as I can before it becomes a Greninja. Because once it's a Greninja, it's bulky and it's doing a decent damage for 2 energy. So very scary card, even by himself. But it plays very nicely, obviously, into with Suicune. Okay, Mega Ulterior. This is the deck I got the most experience with. This is the one I go on win streaks with. Let me tell you how really. And my deck is unique because I think a lot of decks run double Alicia, and I run Guzma. And this was the initial deck. Everyone was running this at one point, so I'm not like the original nothing. But if you're not running Guzma, you're making a big mistake. And I think any deck I've showed you, please know that I don't know if these are the most adapt or up to date versions of these decks. These are just the versions I have. So do not think that these are what you have to play. Please make the adjustments. Please, change the cards as you're playing to make sure you're getting your best, chances of winning. But this is the deck I'll suggest you copy like this straight up, because this has got to be a lot of wins. But you have to know how to pilot this deck. This is not a turn your brain off deck. This is very much you have to literally sometimes use the full 60 seconds to figure out what you're going to do. Now you have Jirachi, who is very, very good at getting early pings, early knockouts on like mirror decks. One of the biggest things funny enough, if you're playing a mirror deck and your opponent leads Chingling and you're going second and you lead Jirachi, they might as well concede because of the potential you have to just get a early turn one knockout, and then also that takes away their bench power for Mega Ulterior later, and also just it just puts a lot of pressure on them early. So early game Jirachi into a mirror deck is very scary. Also, that is pretty much what happens in a mirror matchup is that it just becomes a Jirachi battle. In the first one to lose their Jirachi loses the match because Jirachi is pretty much going to set up eat the knockouts for everything. So yeah, because you can beat a mirror matchup. So if you just get a knockout on Chingling and then you ping their Indeedee, you can just win from there with a Cyrus, and so it is mirror matchups are very interesting and intense, and you have to really be like just be slow when you're making decisions. But yeah, this deck is very equipped to win almost every situation I come across. Most of the time, it's either I need Cyrus, Guzma, or Sabrina to win them every game. So every game, it's either Cyrus, Sabrina, or Guzma always win me the game. So long as most of the time, I just need to see one of them. Most games, those are my win conditions. I just need to see one of these two, one of these three cards, and I can win this match. Because normally, you know, there's some type of helmet like Giant Cape or something preventing me from getting a knockout. So or Cyrus, so just one of those three always give me the win. Swablu is is strong basic. Swablu does suck. I did run into a Garchomp deck surprisingly. In Garchomp, a turn two Garchomp pretty much would pit this deck on his back. So you do not want to run. No one's running Garchomp, but if you do run into a Garchomp EX deck, it is very scary because it can just literally just set up and start and just unleash on you, and it is not fun. So and it'll one shot everything on your bench. So that I think someone was running that for that exact reason because it just one shots everything on the field for Mega Ulterior. So it is scary to go against that. Next, but if they're running Chingling, obviously you're in a bad spot. But I guess you would run. I don't know. It depends. I really think there's a lot of counters to these meta decks, but like everyone's playing a bunch of everything. So if you're playing just a hard counter to one, then when you play Suicune, you just lose every time. So, but this deck is very very strong into just about everything. Chingling obviously is going to hinder all the decks that we just talked about because all the decks we just talked about are rare candy decks. So Chingling stops that. Not only that, Chingling also stops the Pokeballs from coming. So if you stop the Pokeballs from rolling, they can't set up anything else. So a lot of times I'll notice too because the moment I pull out Chingling and start attacking, they use both Pokeballs because they could not use their Pokeballs the entire time I had Chingling out. So it's very, very strong card if you go turn one because you can disrupt them setting up the bench. So very strong card, especially into double Pokeball decks. They can't play things like potions. Potions are not aren't even seen most of the time nowadays. You don't see red card. This is the reason I said don't red card. A lot of times I have the exact hand I want, and I use Chingling, and then so once I see their trainer card, I know I'm safe from getting like my hand being disrupted, because the only way they can disrupt my hand if I use Chingling is with Mars. Most of the time, early game, they're not gonna waste the Mars over drawing cards or something like that. Red card was a thing. You could just red card. Okay, I can still use Professor Research Copycat and then still red card all in one turn. So because of that, you can avoid getting your hand disrupted pretty easily using Chingling as well, because you don't have to worry about red cards. Um, and then once Mega Altair just comes out, it's sweeping pretty much anything that's not evolved. And two shots everything. So two shots. Yeah. Only thing that it doesn't two shot is a Mega Blaziken that has used Lily, but this deck does run Rocky Helmet as well. And Indeedee pretty much always helps us make ourselves two shot to Greninja. So a lot of times, Greninja can two shot us, but if we have Indeedee, we become three to kill from Greninja. So that can pretty much make us getting attacked first actually winnable. So if we get an early knockout, um, and they try to attack twice with Greninja, we can probably get a knockout on that in that situation. But again, for you to be swinging for 130, your bench has to be full. So into Suicune decks is pretty tough because they can also swing for 120 in that. But that's been pretty much my biggest, only time I lose most of the time is I will get hit by Greninja and then their Suicune comes in and he can finish me off because he's swinging for 120. And there's nothing I can really do about that most of the time, except for just try to play around it. But that is my biggest probably losses to Suicune is from just Greninja then Suicune finishing me off. You also have Mega Ulterior, which I mean the non-Mega Ulterior, which is very good into just everything. It's very good into it's a very strong decoy that you can use early game. Sometimes when your opponent is they're waiting for you to evolve, and sometimes if you just play this Ulterior to get some early knockouts instead of Mega Ulterior, it can save you long games in the long run. But you do have to be cautious of when you use this because if you use it early and you don't set nothing else up, then I mean, you know, it was irrelevant. But if you use this like when you're, at an advantage of energy, then it's really good because then once this thing gets knocked out, you can come in with Mega Ulterior and you're in the dominant position. So this Ulterior is very strong into things like Mega Blaziken when you know you're probably not going to be able to attack when you have to force them to attack first. That's pretty much it. Non-EX Ulterior is really good for that. I think a lot of decks aren't able to do that. Like Mega Blaziken, for example, like it has to come in when it has to come in. That's the issue. If it comes in too early, you lose. I think that's the issue with Mega Blaziken. And also, Mega Blaziken just does not play well into like if it attacks a Greninja. Greninja surviving that. Greninja EX is surviving that. Then Greninja EX is gonna hit swing for 100. Then they can just come in with their Suicune and finish you off. So very tough deck to follow. That's why I picked Mega Blaziken last. But yeah, this deck has an answer for everything. I have plenty of gameplay. Go watch any of my gameplay on this deck. But I want to talk extensively about these decks because I have played each deck very much, and I've been playing this deck the most. But I run into the other decks so often. I can just I like the matches are so quick nowadays because it's like okay, like I know when to concede. The moment they set something up, it's like okay, I concede. The moment I don't get to sleep, I concede because I either need someone to be slipped an extra turn or whatever. Oh, and this is also what keeps this deck alive a lot of times. Is because you can stall. Like this is one of the only decks that can stall if your opponent does get tails and they are asleep for one turn. They can't retreat. They can't attack. I think sleeping is a very strong ability. If they just don't get if they miss the coin toss, because you lose a whole turn of not attacking and you just have to sit there. So that has been my win condition for a lot of games. Hope if it comes to that, it's not always the best, but I usually try to make the play that doesn't require me to sleep. So normally I'm like, nope, don't do that because the sleep does put you in a position to just lose most games if you don't get the sleep. But if you get it, you win. So the match comes down to a coin flip, which is so funny, which it normally does anyway at the beginning of the game, because normally whoever goes second is at a great advantage. Except this deck doesn't matter if you get Chingling out. If you get Chingling out, you going first is very strong because they can't set up. So a lot of times, like I'm telling you, if they cannot set up their basic use their Pokeballs, it halts like they'll have this huge hand because they just can't do nothing. And that's sometimes why I wish I would sometimes want to run double copycat because early Chinglings keep them at a very good hand size. So two copycats would be great most games. But copycat also is a double-edged sword, and if your opponent has no cards, then it is a bad card. So, but it is also a very good card when your opponent has like 6, 7 cards, because then you can just copy that, and you pretty much get. I think I just lost to a Mega Blaziken deck earlier today from that exact thing. I had a big hand. He copycatted and got everything he needed to win that game, and so I was like, ah. Oh, with that being said, please, and I'll give this advice out if you watch my gameplay, but please keep your hand as small as possible. It used to be the opposite. Sometimes you would always want to, not really the opposite, because there was always disruption. But sometimes you wanted to play with discretion. But sometimes it, like, you know, like, say, okay, here's an example. Rocky helmet, right? You have a Rocky helmet. You're like, okay, I don't know. I may need this Rocky helmet on this person later. So I don't want to play it yet. Here's the thing, like, if you save that Rocky helmet, that's an extra card your opponent can potentially get by using copycat. That is one extra card you give your opponent from being indecisive. So sometimes you just have to be like, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and play this. So that way, if my opponent does copycat, he doesn't get this extra card in his hand. That is literally how strong copycat is. Is nowadays I have to keep my hand very small to prevent my opponent from getting a big copycat. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're playing. Copycat is very strong. If you're being like, you know, if you just have this huge hand and not, you know, if you keep it big, you're running the risk of your opponent being able to catch up in one turn. And yeah, this deck is, like I said, just really Indeedee Chingling Rocky Helmet is a very strong trap as well, because most things like Hydreigon is stuck in this loop where it's just attacking for 20 and taking Rocky Helmet damage, and you're healing up that 20 every turn. So Indeedee, I almost sometimes want to run double Indeedee in this deck, because of just how strong it is. It is a really, really strong. I would like, if I think I would be honest, if I do not see, no, but he's such a bad card to start with. So I don't. You just don't want to do it too, because he's starting with double Indeedee is not fun at all. But also, some people are playing, I think, double Jirachi instead of the non-mega ulterior, and I don't agree with that. Because non-mega ulteriors can swing for like 80, and that could knock out or just at least put a big dent in just about anything, and that's really good damage. So, but you know, you need to give hit 2 energies, and unless you're just really finna steamroll your opponent with it, it is not that great. But at 100 HP, it does become hard to kill for a lot of things, like a non, like even if your opponent has Suicune. Well, I mean, you never mind, because you're gonna need a good bench to be doing any real damage for Mega Ulterior. I mean, not Mega Ulterior, but it's still a strong card to have. I think this is the best way to play it from what I played. Like, I always have an answer for everything. I just need to see the right card at the right time. But not running double Licia is it. Like, I think, like I said, if I brick, like, it's even if you brick, you can still win a lot of games. Um, but it's so easy to brick with this deck running just one Licia. If you see it early, great, you're good. If you don't see it early and you have like one basic, it can be scary. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. I think I mentioned everything I was wanting to get out. But yeah, this is a fun season, I must say. I'm really enjoying it. Alright guys, I just wanted to share this my code real quick. That's all for the video. If you guys want to add me to trade or anything like that, feel free. Or just, if you guys, I don't know, it just isn't always seen in the video, so sometimes you guys may not know if you ever run into me. But if you see me on the ladder, it's been good. But anyways, please leave a comment, thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. I love making these videos. If you guys enjoy them, please let me know by showing your support, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Real Versus, man. We're out. Peace.